Hello, everybody. I'm Ed Parcaut, your host of Helping the Brave, and let's bring in our guest today, Larry Brant. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Appreciate you being here.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
My pleasure. I only ask the same one question on every episode, no matter what it is. What service and why?
Navy, because I like the variety. Navy chaplains, we minister to the Navy, the Marines, the Coast Guard, and we even have one billet at the Merchant Marine Academy.
Oh,
And
really?
I kind of like bouncing back and forth between the three.
And you must have been in for a while then.
I,
You may.
I've been in for 16 years and be exiting, unfortunately, this summer because I'm just getting too darn old. I hit 62.
Wow. So you have to get out.
I do.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you got in the 40s,
I did. I joined at 45.
and did you have to get a waiver, or because I interviewed a guy who was the oldest veterinarian to join? I think he was 65 at the time.
Oh, wow.
And he,
Okay.
or I could be wrong. It could be 55 or whatever. And he had a 10-year gig, but he had to like get all these waivers. But it's a different thing. It's veterinarian.
I,
Uh,
I did. I did. I had to get an age waiver and an eye waiver. Uh, and I remember going to
just to
Mets.
see the devil better, that kind of thing. Because you are a chaplain, which people don't know, right? Yeah. So
Yes, so
why do you need an eye waiver to do what you do? I'm just
uh,
curious.
no, it's okay. When I went to MEPS, which was a wonderful, fulfilling experience. Uh, when I went to MEPS and they did the eye test, they discovered something in my eye that they felt was could be a disqualifier for service. So they sent me to an ophthalmologist, and the ophthalmologist discovered that yes, I do have that particular condition, but where it is at on my eye, it is outside my field of vision. But because on the books it was a disqualifier, uh, they had to get me a waiver in order to be able to get me in.
Wow. All right. So I want to go back because normally I talk about people's service first, but we got to talk about your life before you went to service because it's a totally different reason why. So let's go back. Did you always want to be a chaplain? Were you always in that field?
Actually, no. I I was very active in missions, as doing church mission trips in high school. Went to college as a music major, was a piano major, and I felt like God was
All right.
calling.
I need to cut you off for 1 second. Are you good with math?
Eh,
Because most musicians are amazing with math.
I
It's
can
like
count 4 and 6 and 8.
I know, but a lot of the really smart mathematicians are really good at music, playing an instrument. So I always ask people, and 9 times out of 10, they always say, "Yeah, I'm really good with math." But
I'm really good with algebra, not so good with some of the others.
well, yeah, well, what are you gonna do?
That's right.
All right, keep going. I'm sorry to cut you off there for a second.
No, I felt God was calling me to be a worship pastor, so got a bachelor's in music, and then married my college sweetheart. Praise God, we're still married today. June will make 40 years.
Wow, congratulations.
Uh, and she hasn't smothered me in my sleep yet. It's amazing. Uh, but then I went to Southern Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky, and got a master's of church music. And for 25 years, I was a worship pastor. I did worship in youth, worship and education. You know, that line at the bottom of the job description that says anything else the pastor thinks is necessary. That's what I did. I did it for 25 years and loved it. Uh, and then in my last church, which I served from the beginning of 2002 to when I joined the Navy in August of 2009, um, I was associate pastor doing worship, discipleship, education, a little bit of everything in Lincoln, Nebraska. And we had some firefighters and police officers in the congregation. And one day after services, they kind of came up to me and they said, "Would you ever consider being a chaplain for the city? Because we have a volunteer chaplain corps for the city, and we think you have a terrific temperament for that." And I said, let me pray about it. Let me talk to the senior pastor about it. And so I did. Senior pastor was fine with it. He said, as long as it doesn't interfere with what you're doing here at the church, I think it's a terrific idea. So I began to do that and really, really enjoyed it. I loved working with the police officers. I loved working with the firefighters and the other first responders. And I also, I don't think enjoy is the right word, but I was fulfilled with meeting people sometimes on their worst day and trying to make it a little bit better, and helping them in any way I could.
I could see that because during the whole downturn, I went and became a life coach, and I'm in the mortgage industry, and I did a lot of short sell for people, and I would, comfort them with the fact of what they were going through, and they would get through the other side. And I never, when my wife asked me, because she was going to go, would you want to go do this? I'm like, what the heck? What's it going to hurt? At least I'll learn something from it. Cause I already had my bachelor's and master's, and I'm like, what the heck? I'll just do it. And it was amazing how much it helped me to help other people understand what they're going through was temporary.
Yeah, exactly. And then in 2007, my wife and I went to a denominational chaplaincy training. I found out that my denomination was going to have one in Hawaii the very week that she had off from work. So I practiced the pitch, and I went to her and I said, honey, it's of God that we go to this conference during your week off from school. And, it wasn't hard to talk her into Hawaii. So we went out there, and it was kind of, part part doing conferences for chaplaincy, part being a tourist. Uh,
Where'd you go? Oahu?
Kauai,
Kauai. Okay.
and with a stop off in Oahu, and uh, and there we met a lot of military chaplains, and God began working on me. You know, kind of like, you thought you were coming to this conference for a kind of sort of free vacation. Well, guess what? I've got something else in store for you. And uh, as God was working on me, like Moses at the burning bush, if you're familiar with that story, I was telling God all of the reasons why he couldn't possibly be right about calling me into chaplaincy, period, but for the military. And every argument I gave him, the next very session, God knocked down. So the first argument was, I was already past the cutoff that the military had for joining. And at the very next session, they talked about age waivers that the military is getting out because they were short chaplains. And then the next one, I thought to myself, well, I don't have the right master's degree that they all want. Um, and then the next session, they started talking about all of these online seminaries that the military is accepting as accredited degrees to be able to come into the military. And I thought I had God at the third one, because at that time I weighed over 300 pounds. And God said, there's this thing called a diet. Uh, and, and finally I just said, okay, God, I'll do it. Would you please, please, please tell my wife, because I'm too chicken too. And because she was there with me, as I said. So that night, we're going back to the room. Have you ever seen those movies where you look down a hallway and it just seems to extend out forever?
Yep.
That was kind of my walk to the room that night, because I was really, really dreading having this conversation with my wife, because I knew I was going to be rocking her world. Um, she had a job that she loved. We were in a good church. Uh, our kids were enjoying where they were going to school. But we walked down that hallway. We got into the room. I closed the door. And before I could say anything, she turned around, put her finger in my face, and said, I think God's calling you to military chaplaincy. And confirmations don't get much bigger than that.
No.
And so we had a long conversation that night about what this would mean for our family. The next day, we talked with the folks from my denomination, and they were honest. They said, "You've got an uphill battle here, but it's not one that you can't overcome." And so we came back home, and I started on that road of what I needed to do. I went back to school, um, went to Luther Rice Seminary in Georgia. They had a terrific online Master of Divinity degree, and I was able to transfer. At that time, I had two master's degrees, and they were allowed me to transfer some things over from that. And my wife bought me hours with a personal trainer at the YMCA, or as I'd like to say, she paid a 22-year-old to try to kill me. Uh, but I just simply took, the physical requirements, the physical fitness test, the height weight requirements to that young man, and I said, "This is what I need to do." And God bless him, he designed a program to get me there. And so, between going back to school, working full time at the church, still being involved with the chaplaincy ministry for the city, and losing weight, it took me about a year and a half, and I lost 110 pounds and got my Master of Divinity and came into the Navy, got the age waiver and the eye waiver, and we started to rock and roll.
Yeah, you got OCS, I assume.
Well, we went to ODS.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, OCS is for those who, we used to joke, OCS was for people who need the military, ODS is for people the military needs.
Okay.
So it's for all of the doctors, the lawyers, the nurses, all of the special staff corps,
Not the line officer.
not the line officer.
Yeah, because when I joined the Navy, I was a corpsman, went to physical therapy school in the Navy, and then got my bachelor's and master's while I was in. And everybody's like, "You're gonna stay in and be an officer." I'm like, "Oh, no. Excuse my language." I'm like, "That's a line officer in the Navy. There's no way I want to be on a ship all the time. It's just it doesn't make sense for I'm not going to be a doctor or because I didn't. So that's why I got out. Well, there was many other reasons, but that's the reason I got out. It wouldn't make sense, and there's no reason to have the degrees I had and be a corpsman still.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Did you ever become an IDC,
What's IDC?
independent duty corpsman?
And I was stay at Camp Pendleton.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did so it was back back in the 90s, so it was a totally different time. Early late 80s, early 90s that at Camp Pendleton we pulled duty as the ambulance crew. And so we were like paramedics and we'd pull duty because we came yeah, and I saw so much stuff which I didn't realize affected me until, years and years later when all the kids are gone and my whole industry slow, because I was a workaholic. And even to this day, I do a lot of vibe coding, which is making apps without knowing how to code. And I'll have this huge monitor. So I have one here, thing here, my mortgage stuff going on here. And people are like, "You got PTSD?" A little bit. Yeah. It's just, you don't want to be alone with your own thoughts because I knew we are going to get into that. So, and what a lot of people don't realize, just because you didn't go to combat does not mean you can't have PTSD or some other issue while
Oh,
you're in. Yeah, because especially the medical people see more stuff than most people. Yes, combat's, I'm not denying the issues that go on with medical and combat, but you see so much stuff on a regular basis, hourly. I took care of hydrotherapy, which was for burn patients and all wounds and all this other stuff. And, I finally realized how I got the ringing in my ears. It was from those stupid machines that would turn the water all because we're in
yeah,
a small room,
yeah.
because I hear, and they're like, "Well, were you around this and that?" Yeah, because ambulance, we'd go pick up people after they're doing training and then there'd be stuff going off and boom, boom. But it's really from those old machines and their hydro machines making all that racket for hours and hours a day. And now I realize because I can just hear that ring, that same. I was like, and that this is just recently I realized that was after I was already had tinnitus that they
Mhm.
gave me through the VA. I was like, "Oh, how did I really get that?" And then I started thinking, "Oh, I know why. I lived in that hydrotherapy room,
That'll do it.
5 days a week, 8 hours a day." Yeah, and they were loud, and it was tile. Everything was tiles. Nothing got absorbed at that time.
That
And back in the late 80s, early 90s, they were not the best machines. They were not insulated either. So a rattle. So enough
that
about me. Yeah.
perfect sense to me. During the height of COVID, I was the ICU chaplain at Naval Hospital San Diego. So I saw more death
Do they
there.
still call Balboa?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
I just I say Naval Hospital San Diego just because I know some of your people may not. My first thought is I just want to say Balboa. Uh,
That's the only way I know it. And that's like Camp Pendleton. My hospital was the old hospital, not the one up.
or the new one.
Yeah, not the new one. Yeah. Yeah.
And I saw more death in that ICU than I saw in Afghanistan.
Yeah. And that's what I try to explain to people. It's stuff that you don't realize bothers you. Like you live off of it now, but
Mhm.
then it turns around and gets to you. One of my so I took care of a guy who was run over by he was riding his motorcycle in LA. He got hit by a car and the guy was on PCP and drug him for a mile and a half underneath the car.
Oh,
He had leathers and boots and helmet and all that, but it can only last so long. And it had road rage. I'm not rage, road rash all over his butt, and I had to take care of that in hydrotherapy. And the screams, I can still hear it to this day. After 2 days, I had enough, and I had to get him to take him upstairs to the surgery and just do it one time because it was just too much pain for him and me because I'm making the pain. It's not this, it's one thing where you're out, as ambulance and you're doing stuff and it's painful, but you're fixing it to get him in. It's another thing when you're actually ripping the stuff off and causing the pain. It's a little different.
yeah.
So yeah.
I can't imagine.
Well, I still know his name and his face and everything else. So and that's a ranger was always like, "Dude, you have PTSD?" No, I don't have a good memory. No, you have PTSD. I didn't
Well,
realize it. Yes, I mean, a lot of us don't understand what it is and how it's affecting us and how come. Because when you go through, and I'm this last thing I'll let you get, Larry. Sorry.
no, you're fine.
When you go through the VA system for PTSD, it takes like 4 months to get seen, especially where I'm at. You have to go through the nurse who they're not like some special person for PTSD. Answer these questions. Yes, pretty much every day. Okay, you scored. You're going on to the social worker. That takes another month. And the social worker asks you the same questions, asks you stuff. And then you get to behavioral health and then eventually to a psychologist or somebody to help you. And it just takes 4 months. That takes too long. We need to do something better for people. Huh?
How many times did you get asked if you were homicidal or suicidal?
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you
Um,
ever, do you feel like it right now? Have you ever had suicidal tendencies? Yeah, I've thought about it. Everybody has that thought at one point. I'd be better if, that's, it doesn't mean I didn't have the gun. I have friends of mine who had the gun and they went click and it didn't go off and they talk about it to this day. And, those are just different things, but they want you to say yes so they can do something with you.
yeah. And
And I don't mean good do something with you.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I have diagnosed PTSD myself, um, from, beginning from that combat tour moving forward. Um, and the sheer amount of time when I finally decided to get seen, because I wanted it all documented because I'm getting ready to go through all of the VA disability stuff. Um,
And just so you know, it's changed a lot in the last month, and it's going to be changed a lot more this year. So we can talk about that offline. I got through mine, but I didn't get 100%. But I'm at 92. They don't have my PTSD. They don't have my sleep apnea. They don't have my mind. All these different things that they don't have, but everything else. Then I'm at that, and it's like so. You need to get seen for your stuff. What's happening now is you have to have 6 months of treatment in service and out, if you're not in service anymore, but current to make it not acute and transitory, it has to be chronic.
mhm.
So that's what's so important to make sure it's in your medical record and you've been seen for it. When as corpsmen, and especially physical therapy, we'd hurt our ankles, our back, and we would just take care of ourselves because we were we knew what we were doing. And that is the worst thing you can do because you need to get that stuff in your medical record. So get people to get that in your medical record before you get out if you're listening to this.
And that's exactly what I've been doing for the last year. Uh, I got my sleep apnea documented. I got the PTSD documented. I've got my old man hip arthritis hips documented, and all of the other stuff I could list for a while. But fortunately, I had some wise people like you get a hold of me about a year ago and say, here's what you need to do. And I've started following that road, and I'm very grateful to them.
Yeah, sleep apnea is changing drastically by the time you get out. They're going to change it to where if you have a sleep apnea machine, you get 10%. You don't get 50% anymore. Yeah.
Well, I hope I can get through before they do that, but you never
It's
know.
the problem is it's your day getting out that the claim starts.
Yeah.
You can't double dip. That's the problem. I just heard that today. While I told you I was working out, I was listening to Raider HQ. Listen to him. He's amazing. He's a Raider right now. He talks about everything going on. And if you want to know what's going on, it's on YouTube. Raider, it's actually Raider HQ After Dark is his thing.
Okay.
There's so many different guys, but he is an actual current Raider, and he is a vet, and he does not understand why they're making the changes that they're making. So, and the PTSD change too is not for us, it's for them. They'll be able to categorize this better, but we won't be able to get probably the 70% that you normally get. You're going to be more like a 50%. They're just changing a lot of things. I'm not saying it's not. So again, that's going to take a lot longer, the PTSD one, because they got to change everything. And if you're getting out of the year, you're probably going to be fine on that.
Yeah, I'm out August 1st.
Yeah, you'll be fine on that one because they're not going to finalize that by then. But your claim doesn't start until after you get out.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
you can
start.
put in for it, but they're not going to issue it until after. Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
that date, not the date originally intent. It's the date you get out that starts the whole thing because of your. And that's what he's talking about. The people getting out of the service are going to be able to. The changes he was talking about that I was listening to today is not going to make that much difference whether it's acute or transitory, because it's going to be chronic because you got history of it while you're in and you're getting out and you can show that. It's people who get out after 10 years, 10 years later go back and they haven't been seen for it, but they got to be seen for it for 6 months and they got to have it in the record as also being seen for it. So
okay. Got it.
it's
Good.
just
So thank
trying
you.
to take it. I don't want to say they're trying to take it away because I've been fighting for mine for 20 some years. I've been fighting the hard fight because in the late 90s, early 2000, they were about denying and denying and denying all the time.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard. So
And now it's all about how you explain it and write it and everything. And I'm actually in the middle of making an app. I'm almost finished with it where you can just upload your stuff and it'll do everything for you.
I want that app.
Yeah, it's called VA Claim Bridge is what it is. So if you it's out there right now, but it's not fully working. What I mean, I only did so a friend of mine could look at it, but it has the VA Copilot in it that you upload your DD-214, your medical record, all that stuff. It's going to go through everything and see everything on there, and then connect it all for you. And
Mm,
that's the goal, huh?
I said that sounds amazing.
And what the other thing is also it's a marketplace. So if you need a Nexus letter because your doctor won't do it and you need one to do it, because one of the things they want is your Nexus letter needs to be from your doctor close to you within 100 miles, unless you're hiring somebody to look at your records to make sure that what you have, and that Nexus person can be further away. So we're going to have a marketplace to where you can find the Nexus people, you can find VA claim people, you can find attorneys, you can find in case you get into you need an appeal process, you need to find it. Well, who are you going to ask? Well, you'd much rather I want to have a place where everybody knows your prices and everybody knows what it's going to be. So it's a lot cheaper because a lot of people go, well, I go with VSO only because of this. I'm like, there's a lot of good VSOs, but there are a lot of bad ones. And they do one thing or two things and they don't try to get you done. The money you think you're saving with a VSO, you lose. And I always tell people don't step over $1 to pick up.
Well, one thing that's good here is we have on base, we have a VA rep who cares about the Marines and the sailors, and we have a DAV rep who is absolutely outstanding, and who's a retired Marine himself.
It's a lot different now when you're getting out than it was when a lot of people got out early on. So, and so
Yeah,
I'm just saying it is better. But if you're not on a base, if you're not, my son's actually getting transferred down there, not to your base, but to the Army base. So,
go to Fort Irwin.
yeah, he's in the Army. He's a combat medic in the Army.
Okay. Yeah, I've actually taken a tour of their hospital out there, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's where he's going because he's like, I'm tired of being out in the field, Dad. We don't they have me working on trucks sometimes. I'm not really doing my what I'm here for.
Well, he'll do his job at the hospital there at Fort Irwin.
Yeah.
Uh, they really have some good folks out there.
All right, so we've been talking about a bunch of things, but one of the things I wanted to get into, what you were talking about, that you talk about, which is a moral injury, which a lot of people don't understand and how that can affect you. And I listened to a long time ago where a guy was saying you'll never get over your PTSD if you have a moral injury. Is that true?
Uh,
I mean, you never get over your PTSD, but you're able to, understand
well,
it and work through
I
it.
I think if you think you're going to be exactly how you were before, then I think the answer is no. If if you can be to, if you think that you can be restored to the point where you can use those experiences for the better, then I would say yes. But it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. And uh, I began to see moral injury in Afghanistan, but I didn't really know what it was.
Right. I was going to say we need to define that for people.
And what moral injury is you've got PTSD is when something happens to you, it traumatizes you. You may feel like your life is in danger, and it really does shake you to your core. Um, and then moral injury is kind of the other side of the coin. That's where you do something or maybe fail to prevent something, or maybe you're ordered to do something by someone in authority over you. And that action just breaks all of your moral, ethical, emotional, spiritual values. And it just emotionally and spiritually breaks you. It makes you feel um, well, as kind of like what I said in the book. Um,
Oh, do you have a book?
I do have a book. Sorry. Um, I have a book coming out on Tuesday, February 3rd on Amazon. It's called Restoring the Broken. Uh,
If I send you my address, could you mail me a signed copy?
I sure can do that.
And anybody has a book, I want to have a signed copy of it for my area over there.
I will be happy to do that. The Kindle version is available for 99 cents on Tuesday, February 3rd, and then the print version after that. Uh, and what I did was I took my doctoral dissertation, took all of the academic stuff out of it, and just kind of put it in plain language for pastors, for ministry leaders, for anybody who just wanted to learn more about moral injury and how to begin to address it. And so when you do that thing,
Larry,
when
Larry, before I forget this, I'm sorry, I gotta say it, but I'll forget it by the time you get off here.
that's okay.
I do a Firewalk for veterans. Did it last 2 years up here in Modesto, California. We normally do it in May, but I moved it to the weekend after Labor Day. The weekend after Veterans Day. I tell you, I want to take a day off, as you can tell. So I would love to have you talk about this at that event, and then right out. I don't know if you're around. I'm sure you're not going to be around. You're probably because you're getting out in August versus November.
I,
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not real sure where I'm going to be because I don't have a job yet. But uh, my my terminal leave starts at the end of May, so
You'll be somewhere else.
I'll probably be somewhere else. Otherwise, I would love to.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is you're probably going to be out of the California.
Doing my best, but that may not taste.
Yeah, I love the sun. I love the weather. Sorry,
Yes.
because everybody tells me you should move out because I'm in Modesto, and I'm like, no, because if I move somewhere else, I have to deal with the bugs, the weather, the humidity, all the other stuff. I can't have to have a screened-in porch. It's my daughter just moved to Michigan. They dealt with that ice storm this weekend. Stuff like that. I don't want to deal with that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. My son's in East Tennessee, and they had to deal with that this year. But
Yeah.
we just we just honestly don't know right now where we'll be. But
Well, let's just keep it in there. Just and we,
okay. Yeah. And so if you want to look it up online, it's www.restoring-the-broken.com. But it will be on Amazon beginning on Tuesday. Um, and it's, I just wanted to put in plain language what moral injury is, because in my experience, um, as I moved about in in the Navy, most most pastors, a lot of people kind of can give you a halfway decent definition of what PTSD is. But when it comes to moral injury, you say, what's moral injury? They just kind of look at you and kind of give you a deer in the headlights look, or maybe squint hard at you. But then when you explain it, that it's when you do something, fail to present something, prevent something, or ordered to do something that goes against everything you believe in, and it breaks you, because at that point forward you feel like you're bad, you're evil, you're unforgivable. Um, Usually what they'll say is, "Oh, I know someone that talks about." And I was actually talking with another podcast host the other day, and she had never heard of moral injury before. And actually, when she invited me onto the show, and she actually had to Google it, and she told me, she goes, "Now I know, now I know what's wrong with me. I've never thought about it before, but that definition is me."
Yeah. Well, this guy was saying that, if you're, no, most people don't want to shoot somebody and kill them. And if you end up shooting somebody and killing them, that could be a moral injury because that goes against everything you believe in.
Yeah.
And I can see that.
Well, imagine being a Marine on guard at a base overseas, and you see a pregnant woman with a suicide vest on coming toward your gate, and you're a lance corporal and the sergeant says, "Shoot her." Uh, you have to obey the order. Number two, you don't want her to hurt, kill you, hurt, kill your friends. So you take the shot, but then later you realize, you killed another human being, you killed an unborn child. Um, how do they come to grips with that? A lot of times they begin to believe, because they did something like that, there was no good decision in that. There was a bad and there was a worse. And in that, they come to believe that they're just broken, bad, can't be forgiven. And so they begin to step away. They step away from their faith. They step away from their friends. They step away from their family. They isolate themselves. They self-medicate. Um, and in many instances, I believe is that they're a large part of that number of veterans who suicide on a daily basis.
Um, is it more towards younger vets?
Um,
Because us older guys will rationalize all the other things, and where we've learned certain things, like just because there's so many things out there. Because to me, I looked at that situation differently, because I wanted to, there was only one choice. There's nothing you can do. But I understand what you're getting at, and that's, as we get older, we're able to rationalize certain things differently. But that's why they want young guys in the military, because they don't they're you and I don't want to run towards danger anymore because we live. Uh, right. I mean that's why they look and don't. I was dirt road poor.
uh,
Dirt road. I was dirt road poor as a kid because my dad died of hairy cell leukemia. So of course I'm the perfect person to go in the military, because I can get a degree, I can get all that stuff, and that's what they look for. And I'm not knocking that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But that's the same thing they look for in people who are going to go, and if we go to war, they don't want people who are rational and that kind of stuff. They just want people to react and do what they're told to do. And I know it's a different world now because my son's in it. They're not exactly the same, and I'm a different generation, and I think that has a lot to do with it also.
yeah, it's interesting. Actually, most of the research kind of shows it's the kind of middle adult, even older adult because a lot of times as you begin to move back, as you begin to rationalize, as you begin to think, then you start thinking about the actions that you took in that deployment, the actions you took in that emergency room, or when you were a first responder on the street. And you start to dwell on it and start thinking, am I a bad person here because of what I did? Um, and so we're seeing the young ones still haven't really thought things through. But
So you're saying is it's the same thing that I have with my PTSD that affected me later in life. It didn't affect me for the first 20 years of my life. It was later on when I had, things started coming up because, we'll just leave it at that. So I can see what you're saying, so what you're saying is if we would have done it now, you or I'm not saying that it's going to happen. We would not have the same response that a 20-year-old is going to have. And then later on in life, have it affect them because we're at a different age now. But what I'm saying is it's happening now at our ages because it happened back when we were 20, 25.
exactly, exactly. And we're seeing, for instance, I'm still talking with Marines from that deployment in 2011 who they they shot and killed people. It was a very kinetic environment. But then as the years go by, the reliving of that uh, wears on them more and more. And I'll get phone calls saying, "Chaps, I just can't sleep at night because when I do, I keep seeing this person's eyes." Um, and so with that, um, that latent set in is what we see more often. And also something you alluded to earlier, a person can have PTSD and moral injury both. And really, if they have both, both need to be addressed before either will get any better.
Right. So I always thought moral injury was part of the PTSD. But you're
A
saying,
lot of a lot of people assume that. I don't agree with that definition. I think moral injury is spiritual in nature. Uh, some folks will disagree with that. Actually, they just added moral injury to an addendum to the DSM-5 so that they could begin treating it from a mental health perspective. But a lot of mental health professionals will tell you is that when it comes to moral injury, they like to work, when they work with individuals, they like to work with them where they come at it from that mental health perspective. And then they also would like to see that individual being grounded by some type of spiritual perspective.
gotcha. All right. So how do you have groups with vets dealing with this?
I do. One thing, so when I went through clinical pastoral education, which is what you have to do to be able to work in a hospital for a chaplain, I was very blessed to work with the San Diego VA. And the San Diego VA has a program that is a PTSD domiciliary called the Aspire Center. And it is in Old Town San Diego. And what they do, first of all,
I think you're going somewhere in San Diego when you get out. I just have this feeling.
well, what they do is they take homeless veterans off the streets. They help them get clean, help them stay clean, um, treat the entire person, address the PTSD, address the moral injury, and then they help them find jobs and help them find housing all in a 6-month span of time. And they have an 85% success rate, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Why the VA doesn't duplicate this across the country, I got no idea. But the staff at this place are so dedicated to the veterans that they just bend over backwards to minister to the needs to these veterans. And some are veterans themselves, some aren't. But the love and the care for these folks is undeniable. Undeniable. I was so impressed when I did my residency with them. But I saw how one thing I loved was that when they sat down and did a plan for one of the residents, the chaplain had an equal seat at the table. The chaplain wasn't an afterthought. The spiritual wasn't an afterthought. And if the chaplain had a seat at the table, the chaplain better have something to say. Now, not everybody was of the same spiritual perspective when they came in, but the chaplain can address something to deal with that person's own spirituality. Um, and
I
so
like
it's
how you say spirituality instead of religion.
correct. Religion can be a part of spirituality.
I understand that, but it also can be separate.
That's that exactly that. It can also be separate. Um, and so what I did was I saw the programs that they did. So the VA has a program called Building Spiritual Strength that was written by a clinical psychiatrist and a Army Reserve chaplain who's a full-time VA chaplain. And what they did was they created an 8-week program that addressed PTSD and moral injury from a spiritual perspective. Um, and not everybody in the group has to be of the same faith background, uh, because it's done on an individual level. And then they'll have
And I got that by saying when you said spiritual.
okay,
Like that's how I took it, was meaning that just in case people don't get it, I've been in many different things in my life and I've been through many different situations, and that's the first thing I took, from when you said that. It was like, I'm not coming in because, and you also, I think you said originally you were non-denominational in the beginning, right? When you were
actually it's Southern Baptist,
okay.
but
When you
if
got in the service,
when you're being a when you're when you're a chaplain, you work with a lot of different
right.
faith groups. And but when I lead a worship service, I lead it as a Southern Baptist. But I saw that, and then when I went to my hospital here at 29 Palms, my thought was, why are we waiting until these guys are out of the service, homeless on the streets of San Diego or wherever, before we're appropriately addressing their moral injury? Uh, And so I took this program that this psychiatrist and the chaplain wrote together, and with their permission, I tweaked it for active duty. And then I approached the leadership at my hospital and I said, this is what I would like to do. And I would like to find a mental health provider who could co-lead it with me. And actually, our executive officer at the hospital at the time was a clinical psychiatrist. He liked the pitch I had so much, he said, "Chaps, I'll lead it with you." Um, and we did. So every spring and fall, we would lead a group of Marine sailors and sometimes retirees through this. And the difference we've seen has been just nothing short of miraculous, not because of us, but because of how good this material is and how much work these people were willing to put into their own care.
because it's never been addressed before. I think that's the big thing, because everybody's tried the PTSD. There's I had a guy come over to my Rotary when I was president of it, because of my vet year. I'm a vet, so let's have all the veterans, and then the guys are taking all these pills from the VA and they're about ready to commit suicide, and they go on this surf thing over. It was called Operation Surf, and there's a documentary on Netflix about it. Broken or Unbroken, I forget what it's called. Um, it's really good, and it's the same thing. They're dealing with, get some feeling differently and other stuff, and that they just need somebody to take the time to be there for them and help them. And that's why I like doing the fire walks, because it's whatever you want. And the guy that helps me run it worked for Tony Robbins for 20 years as his fire captain. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
not like it's not like I'm throwing coals out there and just doing it. I have somebody who's been doing it for 15, 20,000 people at a time. So the goal is to get pretty big. It's just, it's another thing every year. So, how it is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And those types of ministries can just do amazing work. I know we've connected to in Southern California, Soul Survivor Outdoor um, does that type of ministry where they take service people skydiving, rock climbing, surfing, and then connect it to spiritual resilience. And the work they do is just phenomenal.
Yeah, we need to do something because this world's falling apart.
No doubt.
Yeah, and of course, it's nobody's fault. All right. So restoring the broken. It's all, what restoring what's that hyphen broken.com.
Dash thou dash
Dash,
broken.com,
dash.
because some counseling center had just plain restoring the broken.com. They wouldn't let me have it.
Well, yeah, well, maybe you should have just did your name.
I don't want it to be about me.
You're still the author of it.
True. True.
Yeah, because the problem's going to be is people will find that. It's just going to be much harder.
Yeah. Now,
You should-
if they Google my name in Amazon, it pops right up.
right. Well, if it's on Amazon, then the thing about it, which you probably don't know, is if you go to Amazon, you're not trying to make a lot of money. I understand that. But there is a way that when you're uploading it, it's through this other system I'll tell you about. You can put that link on your website. It's the same price, but you get more of the money, so you can do more things with it.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'll send that in an email to you because I don't remember. I have to Google every time I talk about it because I don't go on there all. I did to my website one time. Oh, that's how I do it. You go to my website, Ed Parcaut, my book, and you click on it. It takes you to them, and it's the main person. Let's see here.
Well, the website right now is being run by my publisher.
Right. So if it's Ingram Spark, you know who they are. Ingram Spark is the person that normally you put all their information into, and then they upload it to Amazon for you. They actually have a cart that you can put that link on your website to where if you want them to just order it. So that way you can know who orders your book and you can connect with them. If you go through Amazon, you'll never know who connected with your book, and because they own all those people.
Okay, gotcha.
You only know by the reviews, but if you really people don't leave reviews anymore.
Yeah, I myself have to force myself to leave reviews.
Everybody does. Yeah. All right, Larry, it was great having you on the show. You I would like to stay connected. I'd like to talk to you after your book gets out. I'd like to have, like I said, a copy of your book when it comes out. Is there anything I should have asked you today that I didn't?
Just that if you feel like moral injury describes you, you don't have to stay where you are. There's a path to come back to feel like you're no longer broken. And I want you to get on that path with all of my heart. So please don't feel like you have to stay where you are.
Larry, thank you again for coming on, helping the brave. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Besides your website, is there anywhere else that you want them to find you, like on LinkedIn, anywhere else?
Yes, they could. I am on LinkedIn, so they could search for me.
Larry Brant, Brant.
Mhm. And they
Not
can search.
everybody watches this, just so you know.
Yeah, they can search for me on LinkedIn, and I think the picture of me, I've got a water background because it's a picture for me on a cruise ship. So
All right. Again, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate it.
my pleasure. Thanks a lot.